Hello and welcome to another episode of Game Reviews by James. Today I'm going to be looking at Donkey Kong Land for the original Game Boy. Building off the massive success of 1994's Donkey Kong Country, Rareware and Nintendo decided to try and build a variant of the Super NES smash hit for the portable Game Boy system. The idea wasn't new. Several games cashed in with inferior ports for the Game Boy before, so the question must have lingered. How would Rareware and Nintendo turn a game like this, on a system like that, onto a portable 8-bit system? Well, they managed to do it, and Donkey Kong Land was released just 6 months after Donkey Kong Country debuted in November of 1994. The game built off of ideas designed in the original Donkey Kong Country and brought most of the core pieces from the game onto the Game Boy translation. Not only were people shocked by what they saw when it debuted, they couldn't believe their eyes. The graphics were extremely impressive, the gameplay was still intact, and the game cartridge was yellow like a banana. Because of the Game Boy's limitations, the game had built-in enhancements if you played it on a Super Game Boy adapter for your SNES. So let's pop this game in and dive right into it. Maybe before we start, I should summarize the story of the game. According to the game's instruction manual, after Donkey and Diddy's journey in the first game, Cranky Kong thought the two couldn't cut it on an 8-bit system. So what does he do? He has King K. Rool steal the banana horde again, and of course Donkey and Diddy want to go and get it back. But this time, the duo has to do it on the Game Boy. Yep, that's the story. Cranky tells K. Rool to steal the bananas. I always knew Cranky was a grouchy old monkey. I mean, his name is Cranky for crying out loud. But you're honestly telling me he just wanted Donkey and Diddy to go through all that trouble of getting the bananas back just because he wanted to see if they could cut it on an 8-bit system? What an asshole.
Well, seeing as I've wasted enough time with the story, allow me to jump in and start reviewing this game. Donkey Kong Land is very advanced for a Game Boy game, though the graphics from the SNES game have been heavily downgraded. The enemies, backgrounds, and characters all still maintain a smooth 3D look. This just might be the most advanced Game Boy game in terms of its graphical ambition. The graphics are even better than the other two Donkey Kong Land games, at least they are in my opinion. This game looks great. If this was in full color and on the original NES, it would have sold like hotcakes. The only problem with having such advanced graphics is that it kind of detracts away from the rest of the game as a whole, but I'll get into that later. The rules of the game are basic. You have two playable characters, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. You can have them both at the same time or just one at a time. To get the other Kong, you must find a DK barrel and smash it open. In each stage, all you have to do is get to the end. There are checkpoints in each stage, and the ending is indicated with a portal. When you finish a level, you move on to the next stage. In each stage, there are bananas that if you collect 100 of, you get an extra life, Kong coins which also help you get extra lives, balloons which are the extra lives in this game, and Kong letters. In order to save your game, you must collect all 4 of the Kong letters in a level. There are a total of 30 stages in this game, 4 worlds, and a boss fight for each world. The bosses include a stingray out of water, a clamfish, a mole, who would later appear in the Donkey Kong Country Returns, and King K. Rool, who is also now a midget apparently. There's a pretty good level variety in this game too. Some of the levels mimic their SNES counterparts, such as the underwater stages and the jungle stages. But there are new stages such as the pirate ship stages. Both of these types of stages would return in later Donkey Kong Country games. There are also animal buddies in this game. There's Rambi the rhinoceros and Espresso the ostrich, both of which you actually ride, unlike the other Donkey Kong Land games where you just transform into them. The swordfish and the frog are nowhere to be found in this game. Also, minecart stages don't return in this game, so that's kind of a bummer. Unlike the stages in the original game, these stages don't have names. Oh wait, they actually do. You just can't see them in the game. Allow me to explain. It tells you the names of the stages in the instruction manual. I guess they did this just so it wouldn't take up too much room on the Game Boy screen. Donkey Kong Land is overall a pretty good video gaming experience, but before I sing its multiple praises, just bear with me when I bring out a few of its flaws. There are only two huge gripes I have with this game. One being that there is no indicator as to whether you have another Kong anywhere. Because of this, sometimes you'll die thinking you had another Kong in your inventory, but you didn't. The only way to know for sure if you have another Kong is to press the select button. The only other flaw is that if you get hit above a pit, regardless if you have a Kong or not, you die and are sent out of the level. Though neither of these flaws is game breaking, the latter is so damn annoying. But besides that, this game is rock solid and awesome. For the most part, the control is intact from Donkey Kong Country. I say most part because the cartwheel and roll attack are way slower, and the range of the attacks has been heavily downgraded. It makes controlling Donkey and Diddy Kong a little bit clunky. I can't tell you how many times I died coming out of a rolling attack because of its range. The characters also seem to have some balance issues. Donkey Kong is really slow, his jump is inadequate, and his speed is so awful.
Diddy is definitely the character you want to take control of. He runs faster, jumps higher, swims better, his cartwheel is much better than DK's roll attack, and he holds barrels in a way that makes it easier to kill enemies with them. So I guess in a way you could just say that Diddy is just overall much more superior than Donkey Kong is in this game. I guess my positive assessment of Diddy's abilities caused him to come here and start celebrating. Hey Diddy. Hey, could you quiet down? I'm trying to do a review here. Since Diddy Kong won't shut up, I think I have an idea.
Due to the size and scaling of the sprites, this game is a much slower pace than its Super NES counterpart. Therefore, it almost feels like a new take on the original game. This game requires you to take some parts of the levels a little bit slower, which is kind of fun. Though this game lacks the pacing of the original and is just a slower game overall, I think it suits it. In order to match the pacing of the original, the sprites would have to be downsized considerably, which would hurt this game. And the challenge level is pretty good too. I found this game a little bit harder than Donkey Kong Country, but not as hard as Donkey Kong Country 2. And some of the levels in this game will get you ready for the next Donkey Kong Country game. I think part of this game's gimmick was its graphics. Whereas Donkey Kong Country drew people in with its graphics and then captured them with its gameplay, this game lacks the latter. The clunkiness of the control is the largest turnoff for me. It just seems to be too stiff to be a Donkey Kong game. I don't know, maybe I've just been spoiled by the other Donkey Kong Game Boy games. Has this game aged as well as Donkey Kong Country? Well, the answer is no, but I can see how back when this game came out, it was getting praised for its graphics, but nowadays we have console power on handheld systems. I also like to praise this game for building off of its SNES counterparts, whereas the other Donkey Kong Land games just mimic the games they are based on and play it safe. All of the gripes I have with this game, you might think I don't like it, but truthfully I think it's an awesome game. The graphics make it feel like more than a Game Boy game, but to be honest, if you are limited to Donkey Kong on a handheld, I would go after the other ports of the Donkey Kong Country games on the Game Boy Advance. If you find this game though, pick it up. It's actually pretty good. Though this game hasn't aged as well as its SNES counterpart, the gameplay is still intact from the original, and its innovation with the limited hardware alone helps it stand above the other cash-ins on the Game Boy. Thanks for watching this episode of Game Reviews by James, hoping that you have an awesome day.